All right, welcome to Cassie Orn Thanks. Today, we're going to take a trip to a pretty wild place. It's a virtual town where every single person living there is an AI that can actually think, remember, and even spread gossip. Now, this isn't some far-off sci-fi movie. Nope, this is a real look into the future of artificial intelligence, so let's just dive right in.
So, think about any video game you've ever played. You know how the characters, the NPCs, they just walk the same path, say the same lines over and over and over again? They're totally predictable, right? But what if they weren't? What if a character actually remembered that conversation you had a week ago and made new plans that you had no idea about? What if they could actually surprise you?
And that is the huge leap we're talking about here. On the left, you've got your classic NPCs, like in The Sims. They're fun, but they're basically robots on a script. They're forgetful, predictable, kind of self-absorbed. But on the right, that's these new generative agents. Researchers from Stanford and Google cooked these up to act completely on their own, remember their experiences, and create something called emergent behavior, which is really just a fancy way of saying they come up with complex stuff that nobody ever programmed them to do.
And they built a whole town for them to do it in. Welcome to Smallville. It's a virtual sandbox, and it's home to 25 of these generative agents. Now, each one was given just a tiny paragraph to start. A name, a job, who they're friends with, and then the researchers just let them go. They just set them loose to live their lives.
So, to really see what these agents were capable of, the researchers decided to run a little experiment. And it all kicked off with one particular agent, Isabella Rodriguez. She runs the local cafe, and a very simple idea.
And here's the absolute key to this whole thing. The researchers didn't code her to throw a party. A person, acting like her inner voice, just nudged her with a single thought. You want to throw a Valentine's Day party? That's it. That was the only push they gave her. From that one little seed, the agents were completely on their own.
And what happened next is just mind-blowing. Isabella didn't just forget about it. She immediately started inviting her friends and customers at the cafe. She even planned ahead and spent the next afternoon putting up decorations. And word spread, just like in a real town. Her friend Maria not only agreed to help her decorate, but she used the party as an excuse to finally ask out her crush, Klaus.
So what was the final result? Well, on Valentine's Day, at the exact right time, 5 different agents showed up at the cafe for the party, without any programming, without any instructions. And get this, Maria and her crush Klaus, they showed up together on a date. These AIs organized a whole social event entirely by themselves.
So this is where your brain kind of starts to melt a little bit. I mean, how is any of this possible? How can an AI remember a casual chat from yesterday and then decide to act on it today? It all comes down to the absolutely groundbreaking way these agents' minds are built.
So let's pop the hood. We're going to go inside an agent's digital mind to see the architecture that makes all of this believable, spontaneous behavior actually work.
Okay, the secret sauce has a name. It's called the memory stream. And look, this is way more than just a log of what happened. Think of it like a complete diary of the agent's entire life, and it's all written in just plain, normal language. Every single thing they see, every conversation they have, every thought that pops into their head, it all gets recorded, giving them this incredibly rich history to learn from.
And this diagram right here, this is from the official research paper, and it shows how that memory stream works. I know it looks a little complicated, but it's really just a simple loop, kind of like a thought process. The agent sees the world, that feeds its memory, it thinks about its memories, makes a plan, and then it acts. Let's break that down even more simply.
Okay, here's that loop in action. First, an agent perceives the world. It sees something or hears a conversation. Then it retrieves important memories, like, oh yeah, Maria has a crush on Klaus. Then it reflects and connects the dots to form bigger ideas, like, hey, Isabella's party would be the perfect place for them to hang out. That leads to a plan, and finally, an action, like Maria walking over and inviting Klaus. This whole loop is happening constantly for all 25 agents.
But here's the thing. It wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. And honestly, the imperfections, the little glitches, that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Because the so-called errors in their behavior turned out to be weirdly and deeply human.
For instance, a couple of agents decided that a bar was a totally reasonable place for a one-on-one lunch meeting, a little day drinking. They would try to walk into stores after they'd already closed for the day. We've all been there. In one of the dorms, 2 agents tried to use the exact same shower at the exact same time.
They even hallucinated, completely misremembering events that never happened. These aren't just bugs, they're like little echoes of our own weird, flawed human behavior.
So what does all this mean? What's the big picture? I mean, why should we care about an AI that can throw a party? Well, because this could be the very beginning of a revolution in how we interact with all digital worlds.
Just imagine it, a video game where every single character has their own life, their own memories, their own ambitions. A world you could leave for a year, and when you come back, the characters would actually remember you, and their lives would have moved on without you. And this is so much bigger than just gaming. Think about it. You could have powerful training simulations, or virtual cities where planners could test out new ideas on a population that thinks for itself. That's the future this is pointing to.
Which of course brings us to one last kind of mind-bending question. The researchers in this experiment were basically like gods, right? They whispered one tiny idea into an agent's mind and watched an entire social dynamic unfold from it. If we can create a simulation that's this believable, well, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the future of AI, make sure you subscribe to Kaziorn Thinks over on YouTube. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you just want to listen. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next Explainer.